Oberle, Realtor, and I'm here today with my business partner and favorite lender, Zach Martin. Hi, Zach.
Hey, Brianna.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this with me. So Zach and I, we got together and we decided that on a semi-regular basis, we are going to try and answer questions. Okay. So the topic of today's video is first-time home buyer questions. I actually spoke to my buyers and I got actual questions. So I didn't go to Google. I went straight to the buyer because I wanted to know, what is it? What do y'all want to know? And some of these are easy, Zach, and some of these are, a little interesting. So
Keep me on my toes. Okay.
we'll see. Hopefully, they don't stump us. That would not be the goal today, right?
Yeah, I want to provide value. So let's see what we can do.
Absolutely. And before we do that, Zach, can you tell me a little bit about you, about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the mortgage business since 2018. And with Core Mortgage, we're a broker. So we have a ton of different options depending on an individual situation. The thing about the mortgage business is that no two borrowers are ever going to be alike. So there's so many different situations out there, and we have, a lot of options to cover depending on what your credit score is, depending on how much money you want to put down. I mean, there's so many factors. So the biggest thing to know for people is that, when you're looking for a mortgage lender, you want to look for somebody that you trust and that really helps you achieve your goals. They really ask questions about what your goals are. I always try to do that with my borrowers. I mean, it's the reason I think probably much like you, Brianna, is, the being able to help people is the reason that I'm in the business, right?
Absolutely. And he definitely has made some borrowers happy. And so that's why he's my favorite.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So let's jump into the question part of this. So I guess this one's not too unusual. It's just, how much does it cost to buy a house?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, right? Because, houses can be expensive. So what's the actual cost of getting a mortgage? I look at it from two standpoints. So you have your upfront costs, which are going to include your down payment and your closing costs. And then you have your monthly payments. So based on what your budget is and what your goals are, you want to look at both of those different factors when you're purchasing a home. So the closing costs are typically going to be between 2 and 5% of the loan amount. Those are going to include things like origination fees, discount points, appraisal and credit reporting fees, title insurance. And then we also collect a few months up front for homeowners insurance and property taxes, right? Those go into escrow. Then on the monthly payment side, you have your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So those are going to make up your total monthly payments. So when you're looking at your monthly budget, what can I afford to pay on a house payment? Those are the things that are included in that, right? So the principal and interest, unless you refinance the mortgage, those things are never going to change. But the taxes and insurance, those can change over the life of the mortgage. And so depending on, what county you're in and how they raise or lower the property taxes, you could pay, more or less depending on those factors. So, a lot of information there, but the important thing is to know is that, again, it comes down to every situation being different. Just talk to somebody that can help you figure out what your situation looks like, and go from there.
Well, I love that you said about the taxes, because one of the questions was actually like, what time of year is a good time of year to buy? And for me, I always tell people, like, if you're in the market for an existing home here in Texas, you can get your homestead exemption. And since it is prorated for that year, I always say December, that's not a bad time to actually purchase your first existing home.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, so if you buy in December, there's those tax incentives for the following year when you file your taxes for that previous year. So December is a great time to buy a home. Typically things slow down in the winter months like November, December, January, February, and summers are really busy. But I think the end of the year, I agree with you, is a great time to buy a home.
Absolutely. Okay. So this one is definitely for you because what kind of credit score do I need?
Yeah, so the credit score, it completely depends on the loan program and the down payment amount. What your goals are there. For example, like FHA, there's a lot of investors that can go down to 500. Some only go down to 600. So it completely depends. Versus a conventional, the minimum down payment or the minimum credit score is about 620. So keep in mind that a higher credit score generally improves your chances of approval, and can lead to lower interest rates. So if you don't have good credit, consider working on improving that before buying a home. Just a little effort towards increasing your credit score can make your monthly payments a lot more affordable.
Absolutely. And so like for improving credit, do you have any like tips or tricks or anything?
Yeah, I would say definitely one of the biggest factors is the credit utilization. So if, for example, if you have, let's say, a $5,000 credit amount on a credit card and you go and put, $4,500 worth of furniture on that credit card, that's not going to do a lot of good things for your credit, right? So keeping that number, typically, I think it's around 30% or below,
Yeah.
is best for credit. But yeah, I'm not the credit expert. I'm the mortgage guy. I dabble in credit a little bit. So I
You know
wouldn't advise.
where to send us, right?
Yeah, I just have to put a little disclaimer there, that I am not the credit expert, but I do on a regular basis review and help people, get in the right direction.
Love that. Yeah. And about like buying furniture, please don't do that after you're under contract. Oh my gosh.
Buying furniture, hey, cars, that's the other thing. People get
Oh yeah.
excited. Oh, getting this house. Now we can go ahead and get this car right before
Like,
closing.
right. Wait until after funding. Don't even wait till after closing. Like wait after funding to get.
After funding, don't buy furniture for the house. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I understand the excitement, but let's wait, guys. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. So this one I'll be able to answer a little bit. It says, how long does the process take?
Yeah, wait, so is that for me or for you?
No, no, oh, sorry. I thought it was like there's like a delay. No, that's for both of us, I think,
Okay,
because, it looks different from each side.
that's true. It does, right? So, uh, you know, from a lender standpoint, it varies. It depends. It depends on how quickly someone is ready to move on a house. Once we get an application, it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 45 days, depending on the type of product.
Yeah.
And it can take longer if somebody is still in the process of figuring out what kind of home that they want and still in that shopping phase. But, just strictly from our end, it can take, it typically takes about a month. Once they go under contract, we can close within about 30 days or less.
Absolutely. And for me, the process can take, it can take years. You know what I mean? Basically, the faster I can get a client to understand that they need to get that pre-approval and they need to work with a lender, the faster we can actually do some serious work towards getting you into a home, you know? Because I don't mind like working with you guys and talking with you and giving you resources, but simply if you are not pre-approved, we can't start the actual shopping, And when you work with somebody like Zach, who is going to pick up the phone, like you're actually working with him, it's a lot faster. Because there are other companies, I won't name any names, but there's other companies where it's all online, you don't talk to the same person twice, and I have to push back closing dates because I don't get what I need, you know? So with Zach and a conventional loan and you guys being like on it, 2 weeks is a very like realistic time frame, you know?
Yeah, it's the difference in working with a local lender that truly has your best interest in mind versus working with an online lender that is more transactional.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Okay, let's see. What's another one? This one I thought was kind of fun. I'm not sure how to answer this one. We'll see if either of us can. This one was, do you need prior investments to buy a house?
Good question. So it's important to have money saved to cover the down payment and closing costs, as well as any reserves that that you can have just in case you run into an emergency or there's the qualification requires reserves. But you don't necessarily need to have investment properties or 50 grand in 401k accounts. The biggest thing is that buying a home is an investment in yourself and building wealth. So everyone starts from zero at some point in their life. And keep that in mind, as you go down this journey. You don't necessarily have to have huge investment accounts or a real estate portfolio to go into your home buying process.
Love it. Okay. And so since you don't have to have investments, like, are there any sort of like grants or benefits for first-time homebuyers?
Yeah, so there are definitely advantages to being first-time home buyers. Um, you know, I would say the biggest advantage to being a first-time home buyer is beginning to build wealth in real estate. Um, there are additional advantages like grants, down payment assistance programs that, like everything in our business, completely depend on your qualifications. So
On
there
your
are
situation. Yeah.
yeah, there are eligibility requirements to those. So definitely ask about them whenever you connect with a lender.
Yeah, I can see that just being part of the shopping process, just seeing if it's worth it for you.
Yeah, it is. And if you qualify, it could substantially decrease the amount that you have to bring towards closing and put you in a better spot.
And see, that's the other reason that I love working with Zach, because if you don't understand it, he's going to take the time to explain it to you or get with somebody and get that answer for you. You're not going to find that level of service elsewhere, you know?
Right, right.
Okay, so this one is kind of funny to me. What are the benefits of buying in an HOA? This one,
Ah,
I thought this was a fun question because it's not one I hear often, you know?
yeah, the good old homeowners association, right? I love this question coming from your friend who is buying their first home and has a lot of questions about the process. There are definitely pros and a lot of cons to buying in an HOA. I think it really boils down to your personal preference. For
Mhm.
me, the pros outweigh the cons, so let's discuss some of those. So the pros of buying an HOA, uh, HOAs typically do a great job of providing stable property values. They provide a sense of community within the neighborhood, and they have different amenities like pools or
Mhm.
tennis courts or convention, not convention, but conference
Yeah.
rooms available to the community. They're typically really safe, whether it's from gated entry. Some have, actually guards on in the gates and restricted access to the amenities, whether it's
Mhm.
certain hours or just because it's a gated entry. So, from a safety aspect, the community's typically more safe than others. And there's enforced community standards. So, um, you know, that kind of goes into some of the cons, right? Where some people don't prefer to have rules placed on what
Yeah.
length their grass should be,
Yeah.
or what they can have in their front yard. Um, so there are rules, that you have to consider when buying an HOA, as well as the dues and fees, and always the possibility of mismanagement, with the leadership in the HOA, that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to your lifestyle, because obviously I
Yeah,
work with a lot of people who like the homesteading lifestyle and they like to just do whatever they want, you know?
right.
And but there is every so often I do work with somebody that they have a job that just they don't want to mow a giant piece of property. You know what I mean? They just would rather pay HOA dues so that somebody does that for them, right? Or
Sure.
they don't want to maintain a pool, but they love having access to the community pool. So it just, are you one of those people that wants to maintain every bit of your life? Or do you want to just put some of that on the HOA so that you can just live your life? It depends.
Absolutely. When you're shopping for a home, it's important to take all that into consideration and also look at what the individual HOAs include.
Yes, and that's another reason you should work with a realtor, because we know about all the pitfalls of buying in an HOA. So we're going to look up all the rules and we're going to present it to you so that if it says, oh, you can't rent out your property, if that was in your like 10-year plan that you were going to eventually rent out this property, like you need to know that that's not a possibility in this particular neighborhood.
Absolutely. Nail on the head there, Brianna. You hit it very well.
Yay. Okay, let's see. So how much for a down payment? I know, I just like, that was not, there's no segue for that one, just out of the blue.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No segue needed. So the down payment amount also varies by the product. So for FHA, for example, minimum down payment is 3.5%. For a conventional loan, it can go down to 3%. So there's certain qualifications for different products. But then on the flip side, if you're a veteran, then you can get a home with zero down. So there's options, and VA loans are really great. That could be its own on topic of all the
I
benefits
know,
that.
so we can really deep dive into VA loans for real.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, just know if you're a first time home buyer, just know that you don't have to put 20% down, right?
Yeah.
The old adage of putting 20% down so that you can avoid the mortgage insurance. I think that that's an outdated philosophy, and that you should really consider all the factors when you're considering how much you should put as a down payment.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people, it's like, would you rather pay a little bit of your mortgage insurance, or would you like to pay all of your rent? You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right. Having to save up 20% for a down payment, um, that can
it's
take a lot of
hard.
time,
It's
but
hard.
what if you could get into a home now or sooner,
Mhm.
and over that same period of time that you'd be saving for a 20% down payment, you're already in a home. Yes, you're paying mortgage insurance. That could be, anywhere from, 50 to a few $100s a month, depending on the size home, but you're building wealth through appreciation. And that's, people who build wealth in real estate, they don't build wealth based on interest rates or avoiding mortgage insurance. They build wealth through appreciation.
That's true. I actually heard at another buyer seminar with another realtor where everybody in the audience just started chanting this mantra where it's like, America's built on debt. You know what I mean? Leverage your debt to get you into that $1 million home. And it just starts with that first purchase, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and that's not to say that putting 20% down is bad,
No,
right? But it's you have to ask yourself, what's best for your situation. How can you get into a home as soon as you can, and start building wealth, right?
absolutely. Okay, let's see. Oh, I love this one because we can just go anywhere with this question. It was, what should
Okay.
I avoid? Red flags.
Oh, what are some red flags through the process, huh?
Yeah, the whole process. Yeah.
So, look, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but the biggest mistake that people make that I see is uh, both looking for a home before you apply for a mortgage.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
don't even know what you're qualified for yet. And so if you find a home that you fall in love with, your offer is not going to be taken seriously, right? So you need to
Absolutely.
get pre-approved from a mortgage lender so that when your realtor is showing you houses, they're not wasting their time, they're not wasting your time, If you find the house that you like, you can put an offer in. And then the second thing is taking out new lines of credit, the furniture, the car, the credit card, until after your loan closes, not until after you get under contract, until after your loan closes. That can really mess up your debt to income ratios. It can really throw a wrench into the whole process. And then we have to start over from scratch. And you've already fallen in love with this house that is now not going to be a reality. So, keep that in mind before you make any big changes. Discuss with your lender, discuss with your realtor to make sure that you're moving forward the right way.
Absolutely. And like red flags on my end, if you meet with a realtor and they don't hand you an information about brokerage services, okay, this is drilled into your head when you're in school. So they know that it's legally required to be handed out when they meet you, okay? So if your realtor isn't doing the bare minimum, which some of them aren't, you know that maybe you should start interviewing other realtors that might follow the rules a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me to a question, Brianna, about the difference between real estate agents and realtors. So a lot of people don't understand that they're not necessarily synonymous. Can
Yeah.
you kind of give us some insight there?
Oh, absolutely. So a realtor, we are bound by a code of ethics, and that's easily searchable online. You can find all the rules that realtors have to follow that is set forth by the National Association of Realtors. And with that code of ethics and with our membership, we get access to the MLS. Okay. A real estate agent is not going to be on the MLS. So they're not going to be able to do comparative market analysis. They're not going to be able to search trends. They're not going to be able to see what houses are going for in certain areas, and they're not going to be able to market your property either. Their hands are really, really tied. And so for me, it doesn't make too much sense to use a real estate agent when realtors, they're just, most of my sales is about the code of ethics and how I follow it and how I can't do that because of the code of ethics, or I have to do this because of the code of ethics. I really lean on it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I really appreciate is so cut and dry. It helps me stay within the lines. It helps me help my clients. And so, yeah, I would say there's a big difference. There's a big difference between a realtor and a real estate agent.
Right, right. I mean, it sounds like anybody can be a real estate agent.
Oh, yeah, literally anybody. I mean, you can get your license and then you can just go around and say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I'm working with XYZ broker that I've never met, and I can sell your house.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into, now that we're talking a little bit about real estate agents and realtors and how you help people, right? So talk to me about what the perfect home looks like. How do you help people find the absolute perfect home?
So the perfect home does not exist. Okay.
That's good to know.
It
That's good to
absolutely.
know.
What I like to do is I like to get to know the person. Okay. I do this through in-person consultations, but I also have a survey that I love for people to fill out where it just helps put it into writing, like what you're actually looking for. And if it's a married couple or if it's a family, you're going to have varying priorities, right? And so I need to see them so that I can discuss them, so I can see really what are your actual priorities? What do you actually want? And once I figure that out, sometimes there's a lot of outside influences that can make the process kind of hard. I'm talking about usually dads and uncles, you know what I mean? They're the ones that make it a little difficult. And what I do then, if I come to this wall where you are looking for the perfect property and you're not going to stop until you find it, we have the discussion about what is most important to you. Is it location, amenities, or price? Okay. Because I can show you homes where those three things are going to be varying degrees of perfect, right? This one, perfect amenities, perfect price, but it's like an hour away from where you want to be. Okay. Is that drive something you're willing to put up with for the next couple of years? Or are you more willing to sacrifice amenities? Because you can always build that later when you have the money, right? And price. That one's the hard one for people. It's like prices are what they are. And the market is going to bear what it's going to bear. And sometimes you're going to have to pay more than what you originally thought or what you think is appropriate. And I'm never going to make you pay more, or not make you pay, but I'm never going, well, yeah, I am never going to make you pay more than what you're willing or able or want to. Okay. My only job is to present you with the facts so that you can make an informed decision and tell me what you want to do.
Right. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they're deciding on a realtor or agent, right? What questions should clients be asking?
So what questions they should ask?
Yeah, what questions should they be asking when deciding on which realtor to use?
Well, there's a couple of things that I love to hear. I love when people ask me, like, for a resume, they want to see what I did before real estate. I love that. It shows kind of a history of like competency, right? I love when they ask just kind of like what services I'm going to be providing, because a lot of people think, like, as a buyer's agent, that I'm just a door opener. I like to have the opportunity to really stress like what services I do, because, we don't get paid for nothing. Like, we save you money, or I save people money by putting in a lot of work, like, I'm going to tell you everything that I can see that the market has collected, okay? Because my goal is that you go under contract once, okay? I don't want you to go under contract and then spend all that money on an inspection and then it doesn't meet appraisal, or you can't, there's always something that can happen,
Yeah.
And I want to save you that heartache, that money, that time. Like, that's my goal, because you can go around without a real estate agent putting offer after offer after offer. But if you're not pre-approved and you're not working with an agent, you're going in blind, you're going in and there's a good chance you're gonna mess up the deal and you're not gonna get that home.
So discussing all that value that you bring to the table as a realtor, I think brings up a good question that not a lot of people really have a good understanding of, which is, do buyers have to pay you?
That is an excellent question. So remember that piece of paper I told you about earlier, where it was the information about brokerage services, and it explains how representation works in Texas. So I can either represent the buyer, I can represent the seller, or I can represent both through intermediary. Okay. And so whenever a buyer's agent says, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'll do it for free," that's not technically true. Okay. So the way a listing works is the transaction costs a certain amount of money, and that is negotiated by the seller and the listing agent. Okay. And then the listing agent gets permission to subcontract out the work of representing the buyer. Okay. And they only offer so much because, again, that is by the seller's permission. Okay. So if I have a buyer's representation agreement that says I get a certain percentage, and you put an offer on a house that's offering less than that percentage, legally you can be required to pay the difference. Now, it doesn't happen too often, but it does happen, and it is something that you need to have that conversation with your realtor. So how, like, you ask a lot of questions about how to pick the realtor. And I know we touch a little bit on this, but like, how would you say to pick the lender? Because like me, it's always like, does he get the job done?
Right. Well, getting the job done is obviously important. But buying a home is a complicated process. I think whether you're talking how to pick a realtor or a lender, the purpose of vetting those people and having them around you is to create a team um, with a good realtor, a good lender that you trust. And it's going to
Mhm.
take the time to educate you on the entire process. Of course, they need to do a good job of figuring out what your goals are and the best way to accomplish those goals, because nobody's situation and nobody's goals are the same. So it's a very individualized approach. That's the way I like to take it, because that communication and that trust makes all the difference throughout the process. If I'm able to help somebody achieve their goals, um, then I consider it a job well done.
I love it. And also, not only do they get the job done, do they pick up the phone?
Do
That
they
one.
pick up the phone? Well, that goes back to our previous conversation about, working with the local lender versus an online lender. You're going to have you're going to have questions throughout the process. You're going to have questions at nights, on weekends. If you want somebody that's going to pick up the phone during those times, um, your chances are a lot better with working somebody local.
Absolutely. Let's see. I guess that was all. We hit them all. We got all these
Did
ones.
we hit them all?
I wasn't sure we
Did
would
we
get
do
through
it?
all our questions. We did it. We did it.
Very nice.
So
Let's
now
see.
we just need more questions.
There might be a few. Oh, I had a couple. I see a couple questions here I didn't get to on your end.
Okay, okay. You
So,
go ahead.
uh,
I was going out of order. That's why I was, yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. Let's see here. So, Brianna, is it cheaper to build or buy a home?
Oh man, that is an excellent question. It really depends. I will say that if you're buying in one of these new build communities, they do make the process pretty easy. And at first, you're going to have some really low introductory taxes because you're going to be taxed basically on the land and not the home, you know? Whereas with an existing home, um, it might be a little bit more upfront, because there might be some repairs. You're not going to get that introductory tax rate. Depending on if the owner applied for homestead exemption that same year, you might not even get your homestead exemption, right away. So it depends on the situation. And since your buyer's agent works for you, they can really help you just kind of do the math on that, and they can refer you to lender partners that are going to get real detailed with the math on the different homes you're thinking about.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not. It's a question that was posed to me by a first-time home buyer, but it's not necessarily the only way you should be looking at it either, right? Because your goals might not be to find the cheapest way to do something.
Yeah.
You might want to be in an area that is established. You might want to have nice full-size grown trees throughout the neighborhood. You might want to be near different amenities in your community that a new build or a new developed community might not provide. So, you got to look at more than just the cost of a new build or buying an existing home, but is also what your goals are and what you want your lifestyle to look like.
Absolutely. Because if you just focus on the money and you don't focus on anything else, when you're in that home, there's a really good chance you're just going to be unhappy, because you're going to be like, oh, I should have done this better, or I could have saved this dollar here or there. It's you really want to focus on the lifestyle aspect of it, and because you're going to be living in this home.
Yeah. Well, that's why you buy it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
At least a primary residence. So yeah, that's fantastic. Hey, one more question for you. So, um, what's your favorite thing about working with first-time home buyers?
Oh my gosh, everything. So I'm one of those people that just loves to teach. Like I in a different life, maybe I would have been a teacher. You know what I mean? I love informing people and showing them all the different like tools available. And so with a first time home buyer, they're usually so eager to learn and they don't come at you with the I know everything attitude. And so it really allows me to like step into that role and just be like, let me teach you everything. I want you to be the most informed first time home buyer like there ever was, you know? And I built such a wonderful community of vendors, you know, whether it's lender or insurance or inspectors, you know, I know everybody in the industry that's just as passionate as me, that's going to teach them too, you know? So if you hit
Right.
something I don't know, I'll be like, let's get Zach on the phone. Let's learn something right now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of when and every time I speak with a first time home buyer, I bring this up because it reminds me of when I bought my first home. And it was an absolutely crazy process, right?
Yeah.
That was way over my head. But having a good lender to be a resource for me, answer questions, and explain the process as we went through it, it
Mhm.
made the whole thing so much easier. It made it feel doable. It made it feel
Yeah.
like I could accomplish this goal after all, right? And so I just remember that feeling, and I try to be that resource for my
Right.
first
Like
time home buyers as
replicate that.
well.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I love it.
I love that. Okay. Well, this was an excellent conversation. I feel like this was very helpful. And I hope that we get more questions. I hope everybody in the comments or just like PM me or call me. I just want to know, what would you guys like me and Zach to talk about in our next video? Because we're really excited to just explore all your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to deliver value. So looking forward to it. But really appreciate having me hop on here, Brianna. It was great, and look forward to answering more questions down the line.
Absolutely. Always good to talk with you, Zach.
Awesome.